Welcome to our interview.
Really important part of becoming a band is forming the name, coming up with the name. So how would you say you came up with your name?
Yeah, so we were in college when we started the band in Tampa, and I was like really into reading and whatever, just like sifting around different books, and I read On the Road for like the second time, and I read it in high school and was really into it. And there was this phrase that was like, I look to the west of my future and the east of my past, and it was just kind of like the name kind of came from like just kind of wanting to be in between what you're doing right now and where you want to be, and like kind of enjoying that and spending all your time on that. I would say that's a big place where we came from the name. I don't know, do you guys have?
It turns out Western Sun is actually the name of a vodka company, so we kind of had to change it. It was initially Western Sun, and we changed it to the Western Suns because we didn't want to get involved in a legal battle with our band. We didn't have the funds for that, still don't. But it morphed along the way, and that was the main like genesis of it was Western Sun.
A big inspiration was Kerouac from it, and from there we just kind of ran with that idea that Blake happened, because it was really, like he was explaining, pretty profound and really explained where we were at in our current lives and where we were all at together and kind of the direction we wanted to go.
Were there any other names that were thrown out there when you guys started to come up with the process of creating a name? Or was it just like that one?
Yeah, there were some.
There was definitely some names, but nothing memorable.
Yeah.
They were all bad, I guess.
Now, another really important aspect I would say of becoming a band is creating your sound. So, what musicians influenced your music? Because, you know, as individuals, we all come from different backgrounds. Therefore, we all have different musical influences. So, did you guys have like mutual ones, or did you just merge all your musical influences to create this sound?
We definitely share some, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of mutual sounds that we were into.
Definitely share, like a lot of older bands. Me myself, I grew up listening to strictly like classic rock at a very young age. Like Eagles and Tom Petty, one of my favorites, AC/DC, stuff like that. So I was very young and started listening to those, and I kind of hide in my bedroom and put headphones on and listen to those without my parents knowing. AC/DC was a big one. They didn't want me listening to that young, so yeah, that's how my kind of musical taste started and still is. I don't listen to many newer bands except for like Kings of Leon and Catfish and the Bombmen, but the rest is just classic.
Really good.
And all these guys are classic rock heads as well.
Yeah.
We kind of have some different ones. Garrett's an R&B guy.
Yeah, actually, I think my first CD that I ever got was Boys to Men, so kind of different from where we're at now. But me and Blake have always been into like the indie rock and roll bands. We were always into like Kings of Leon. We started listening to them in middle school, and My Morning Jacket, and just kind of, I don't know, was really moved by what you could do with a couple guitars and drums.
Was there anything in particular that influenced you to start playing music? I've interviewed some bands before, and they told me like maybe their cousin picked up the guitar and they wanted to learn how to play too. So did anything in particular happen that pushed you to play your instrument that you're playing today?
Blake definitely was a big, I've known Blake since second grade.
Oh, wow.
Way back. And he was always very musically inclined, played piano since he was like 5. And he was playing guitar, and he kind of encouraged me to start picking up a guitar and taking lessons. And we ended up performing in our 6th grade talent show together. And it went well. Like we loved the feeling that we had when we played music, and our friends really seemed to enjoy it. And that feeling that we got when we played on that stage for the first time, it created this conviction in us. And I think from that point on, music was always like a core to our friendship.
Now, a critical aspect of your sound is, you know, when you create your music, can you walk me through your process of how you create new music? Sometimes bands will sit in rooms for hours with a recorder and play around with their instruments back and forth, and when they hear something they really like, then they'll say, oh, let's play around with that, and then they'll pick that up as a song. or they'll write like the lyrics first, so they'll have something in mind for the lyrics, like a melody. So how would you guys say you write? How do you go about writing your music, like making your songs?
I think it's all pretty spread out. I think we all have our own styles. And like Blake, I'll hear him playing guitar for like an hour, and then I'll like run upstairs and I hear a part that I think is amazing and record it on my voice memo, and then we'll like revisit that. Yeah. But some people just like will just play music and not even with no general aim with it. But like for me as a producer, I'll like key in on certain things. Like that could be a song.
Yeah, Nick's good about picking out certain parts because we're just constantly playing and doing different things.
I think it's definitely changing though. 'Cause when we started writing as Western Sun and brought our first album, Frontiers, to Nick, we were just playing and writing, envisioning all these songs on acoustic guitars. And we brought these songs to him as like these slow, ballady songs, and he turned them into the rock songs that we wanted to envision, but just couldn't at the time. So it's definitely changed. Our writing process, at least mine, has changed now because I envision the full band sound, not just me on an acoustic guitar. I'll write with everyone in mind. So
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of bands starting out, it's tough for them to conceptualize like an end product or how will this sound
Right.
on song 8 on our record, or it's not always easy to sit down with an acoustic guitar and imagine all the pieces in there. So after doing the first record, I think everyone has really gotten a good grasp on, at least what I look for in the studio, how to build a song, what pieces might be fluff that need to get cut, what pieces, let's really focus on this thing's amazing, let's do it 4 times. So there's like a million different ways you can look at writing a song, but I think we all are pretty congruent on how that works now.
Yeah,
So
we
when-
definitely share a vision, but the process or the system is constantly changing. There's no set thing. We write individually sometimes, like our first record, there's songs that each of us wrote individually. There's songs that we wrote as a whole band. There's songs that Nick and Tyler worked on. There's songs that me and Blake worked on. So it's constantly changing and evolving.
So when you guys are making a record, do you have like an end picture in mind? Like, I want it to sound kind of like this, or I want it to, do you already have like a shape, like a mold to it, and then you just fill it in? Or is it spontaneous?
Yeah, I asked them to bring me references or ideas, like we like the drum sound on these songs in this record, or we love how they approached the guitars or the reverb, just vibe the elements of certain things, not like specifics usually, just because you don't ever want to go too in depth, I think, with like trying to emulate something. But I think that you can get inspiration, and as long as I know where their heads are at, bringing a song in, it helps me envision how it could be at the end.
And when it comes to track listing, at least for the first album, we had about, I think, 25 songs recorded, and we had to whittle them down to the final 12. So we definitely had to figure out what the vibe of Frontiers was and what songs we wanted to put on there, where we wanted them in the album, and that took a while to get used to, but I mean, we love doing it now.
Yeah, it was funny when we actually came to the point where it was like, okay, let's narrow this down to a record, and each of us had to write our track list of what we thought the record should be, and we all did it individually, and then we came
Oh,
together.
that's a cool way to approach it.
It was all the same, except for like a couple songs here and there.
Yeah.
So we definitely share a vision, which is what makes this work so well, I think.
Now, as far as the writing process goes, I'm a writer. I write for my website and I write for a music column in a magazine. So whenever I need to get inspired, I like to drive at night in the highway with the lights all lit up and just like really like dark, but like the highway's all lit up. So as far as that goes, do you guys have a preference as to where you write your music?
I don't think it's necessarily like a physical place. I think Blake tends to gravitate towards books.
Okay.
A lot of reading, and I think he derives a lot of inspiration and things that push him to write from that. But outside of that, I don't know if there's really a physical place.
That was actually my next question. Do you guys write from your personal? Where do you pull your writing from? Is it personal? Is it like I know a lot of artists in the UK live in small towns, so they pull a lot from like people around them, their neighbors, what they hear in like pubs and bars and stuff like that. So where do you guys get your material to write your songs for?
Mine's pretty much 50-50 my life and a completely made up story.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I write.
I think there's usually like something that happens that like gets fictionalized into a song. Like you'll meet a person that you want to write a song about, or you see a situation, and then like it's really hard to like write nonfiction and writing. Like it's hard to be Bob Dylan and those guys that tell like stories, whether they're true or not, kind of like work. And I think that a lot of the time we like draw inspiration from experience, and then like say what we want to about it, whether it's true or not. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Did you guys play in other bands before you were a band together? Like, how has your music evolved from when you guys started playing together in the beginning to now? How have you grown as musicians together?
I've been in one band before this, and it was like end of middle school, high school. It's called 3000 Volts, and it's pretty much an AC/DC cover band.
Yeah, I think me and Garrett just growing, we never were in a band together, but both of us played in church. We would play with anyone that had an instrument that lived near us. So a lot of me and Garrett, like, we were never in a band, but we were always musicians together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started this band. So we're all pretty.
And how would you say you have evolved as musicians together in your band?
Exactly, and then Nick has a totally different path because Nick was in quite a few bands growing up.
Yeah, so I'm like almost a generation ahead of these guys, and I grew up listening to like punk rock and was in the high school band thing and just was playing shows every weekend, sometimes with different bands, sometimes with my band, which had like a rotating, member list at all times. And so I did like the classic band, like when you hear Nirvana talk about garage bands, like I definitely did that whole thing, which is really cool. And it definitely helped shape my idea and excitement of being in a band and what that means and how you can really work hard at it and actually like have a couple people come to your show, and then it's the coolest feeling. And then it becomes this addiction where that's literally all you want to do is go play in front of more and more people. And these guys are now getting to that point where I think when we do start playing in front of, like, right before we left Orlando, we had a couple great shows out there, and it definitely brought me back to those moments where it's like, okay, this is why we work so hard in the studio or in the rehearsal space.
Now, this is one of my favorite parts of the interview. So one of my favorite songs that I heard from you guys, keep in mind I hear a lot of different songs throughout the day. I pick from different bands, and I really like Send My Love. So can you guys tell me a little bit more about this song?
Start it and finish it. So, like I was talking about earlier, every song we brought to Nick with the first album was pretty much an acoustic ballad. That's how I envisioned the song starting out. So Blake and I actually went on a spring break trip while we were in college to the mountains kind of near here in Georgia, while the rest of our friends went to Panama City Beach, and we just held up in a cabin. And I ended up writing Send My Love, and the chorus, which really stuck, and then I didn't like the verses, so Blake wrote the two verses. And it's just kind of this Frankenstein song where it's totally different than what I started out, and brought it to Nick in the studio. They filled in the guitar parts and just made it a pop rock song, and it's cool to see how far it's come, but it's a cool story behind that.
Now, individually, what would you guys say your favorite song is to play live? You can envision a song and play it in the studio, and it sound different live when you play it live to a crowd, depending on how they react. So with that in mind, what would you say your favorite song is to play live?
I think mine might be 49.
That's mine.
Yeah, I think that's mine as well. It just brings the most energy, and it's a very dynamic song the way we play it live. So it has moments where it's very like low and vibey, and then we bring it up and it's like right there in your face, and then it comes back down. So I like the dynamics in that song, and I think it carries over well live.
Yeah, I wish we had 4 different ones.
Well, I mean, sometimes playing a song live can, like, getting feedback from the audience is one of the best things. I know the other day I was watching The Killers perform, and in a YouTube video, and then when the audience sings back to them, you could just see his face. It's like, it lights up. Do you guys get that feeling, that, like, when you're on stage and then people are reacting to your music in a positive way? Are you like, wow? It's definitely, is it worth putting all the hours of work?
Well, that's the drug, that's the payoff.
Yeah, I think the moment that, for me, when it all, like, when I first had that first taste of that feeling was when we were playing Send My Love at a venue in St. Petersburg, and you could actually hear the crowd singing the "Whoa" part, and it was just really cool to like hear that and know that people were listening to something that we had created, And I don't know, it's just a really good feeling. And like Nick said, I think that's the drug. That's what keeps us working hard. That's what keeps us playing so many shows, is to continue to have that and to continue to connect with people, our friends that come and see us.
Do drugs, kids, or do drugs.
That's actually a good thing that you mentioned. That kind of links to my next question, which is, I'm gonna ask you guys to step back to the first time you guys played on stage together as a band. Those first moments when you're about to go on stage, what was going through your mind? Now, like, this is the first time you're playing in front of people that know your music. High anticipations, everything you've been working so hard for, you're presenting it to this audience. You don't know what to expect in return. What was going through your mind? Because we have a lot of young musicians that read our columns, and that's a question that I get frequently. Like, well, I get like really nervous and I can't really like cope with the feelings. So how would you guys say that you would feel? How did you feel that first moment you went on stage as a band?
Yeah, maybe Monkey Bar, but I would say even like The Social is a better example, because at first, like Nick, he was our producer, so he wasn't too into jumping on board to being our drummer right away. So we kind of had to prove that we were worthy of having, because he's a phenomenal drummer, like truly one of the most incredible drummers that I've ever heard. And just to get him on board, we kind of had to show him that we were serious about this, and we just didn't want to just do it as a side thing or just something for fun. So I think The Social, which is a venue in Orlando, they have a lot of national acts play, was kind of the first show that we played together. And there was actually people that came out and see us and paid money. And before, I tend to get really nervous. It definitely gets to me. Starting, hours before. When you step out on stage, it all kind of just goes away, and you know what you have to do.
That's when you should be the most nervous, and we never are.
Yeah, right when we step on stage, because that's where we feel comfortable. We are basically brothers. We've been very close friends for a long time, and when we're all there together and we know what we have to do, it brings it all together for us.
Yeah, I think before a show, we were super rehearsed for that summer. We were making the record. We spent hours and days inside of like a metal storage unit where we had all our equipment and we were rehearsing. And so the funny thing is, you go to a show and you never rehearse what you're supposed to do before and how you're supposed to like warm up, or if you're not. And then you get to the stage and you're playing music that you've played a bunch, and that doesn't make me nervous because we rehearsed it so much.
Yeah, thousands of times.
I got more nervous playing like our terrible acoustic shows that we used to play like all these insane covers at, and like I remember like we'd have to learn chords, and like that's just insane to me now. Like not remembering a chord, like it's all muscle memory. So like those shows when we were playing, all three playing acoustic guitars and like forgetting chords and like forgetting lyrics to these oldies songs that we were playing to these like 6-year-old people, that was the most nerve-wracking. I would never want to do that again.
Well, this leads me to my last question, and it's one of my favorite questions. I have to read off of it because it's kind of long. But before I tell you guys this question, the reason I always ask this, especially to bands like this, is because I generally believe that you guys are wholesome musicians. You seem like you work hard at your craft, and you weren't like bought by a record label, and you weren't manufactured. And what I'm trying to get at is, I think a lot of bands that are able to make it big in the industry today are manufactured. They're pre-produced. They're sent off, re-imaged, they come back, and they're suddenly super good, and they sell a bunch of records because they're good looking, and because they appeal to a younger audience. I grew up listening to the Stereophonics, Stone Roses, Oasis, and to me it's really quite hard to find bands that fit that today. Like you said, I grew up listening to Def Leppard, to AC/DC, and today there just aren't many bands like that. So how do you guys feel about the music industry in those regards?
Oh, man, I could talk for hours on this.
I always love to see the reaction of real musicians about this question, because it's always very intriguing.
Yeah, it's such an interesting question, because I've seen my friend was actually being looked at by big record labels like in early 2000s, when it was kind of still a thing to get a record deal and all of that. But that was like right in the advent of the 360 deal, and record labels started to lose money and things and all that. So I saw
like not doing it your own way, and you had some some really good ideas, and we just took his vision because we really didn't want to do that, and we just didn't have any other options. So yeah, we're glad we found Nate. We all have a large opinion on the label scheme bands nowadays.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I can see it from a mile away.
Yeah, I personally absolutely despise the bullshit fabrication of a lot of the.
I get a lot of shit for it, excuse my language, because I'm like, my friends are like, you're stuck in old bands, you don't move on, like, and I'm just like, well, like, you turn on the radio and it's quite disappointing, to be quite honest with you. It's really disappointing. And you know, like you said, the advantage of the internet now is you get to come across all these great musicians that are, you know, they actually work at what they love to do. They don't just put on a fancy costume and go on stage and can't sing or just dance. They actually work on their music. And I feel like a lot of what's wrong with music in general today is that they've forgotten about the music.
Yeah.
You know, it's about selling records, about topping charts. And when I come across bands like you guys, it's really quite a relief to see people that actually work for, you know, work to make a better sound, and it's really quite nice. So thank you guys so much for staying true to yourselves and for making great music. It's
We really appreciate that.
there has to be some bands out there that do it, so it's good to see that some musicians are still true to themselves. This leads me.
We definitely want to be successful and sell records.
Yeah, of course.
That there's ways to do it without, you know, selling your soul or becoming something that's
That you're not.
Start out.
Right.
I think we're kind of lucky in the sense that, like, if we're working on new music right now, and it's fun to, like, be back in the studio and kind of, like, see where we want to evolve from where we were with Frontiers. And it's kind of cool when we go into the studio, it's literally us four, and that's it. So it's kind of hard to have outside influence when everyone in the band is the only people in the studio. So.
Now, just curious, when you guys have a song like that's almost finished, do you show it to anybody, or do you keep it just in between four of you, or do you like ask opinions until they're like, oh?
No, we have parties, and we'll have a party at our house, and we'll have a few drinks, and we'll grab someone like, hey, come here, I wanna get your opinion on something. So we're constantly like blasting our friends' ears with things that we're working on to see if they think it's quality, or if they're into it as much as we are, because that's a hard thing to get away from, because again, it's just the four of us. Like, there's not external producers or writers that are in here with us. It's the four of us, and we kind of have to decide if it's good or not. So it's always good to ask our friends or the people that enjoy our music the most if they think that it's where we're trying to head.
Probably 4 months before a song's even released, so I'll have it overplayed.
Yeah.
Right to the point where I'm like, I know the range of the song, like it's completely overplayed in my head. It's like, because I love it. I love listening like to our music. So I'm just like over and over again. Even this song, it's not even done yet, and I've listened to it like 2,000 times.
Yeah.
Unless our friends don't like it, and they're like, yeah, that's our friend's band, they suck. And then we'll just start over.
Now, very last question, I promise. So, what do you guys hope to accomplish from today to the end of the year with your music? What do you guys have any tours coming up, or are you said you were working on new music right now? Are you going to release anything before the new year, or when the new year comes?
Definitely our single.
Single coming out.
And maybe a new music video.
Oh, stay tuned for that.
Probably with a new single.
That's
Yeah.
one thing you should say. It's Nick that recorded both of the music videos too.
I don't know if you guys had a chance to check out any of the video stuff. We do all that in-house.
Yeah.
I try to keep as much of that out of the hands of the greedy as possible.
So
yeah,
you,
everything from the recording of the music to the
Oh,
music
wow.
videos to the artwork, like all of it we do with just the four of us.
wow, that's awesome. You guys have no outside influence, and it's just the four of you. That's really cool.